So today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Instead of diving into current issues in the business finance marketplace and all the ins and outs of credit, money, and everything that they didn't teach you in school, which is absolutely why we're here for you, we thought it'd be interesting to kind of just share a little bit about our story, because at the end of the day, you'd much rather do business with a person versus, some corporate business name out there. Everybody wants to connect on a personal level, and they really want to hear your story. In August of 2018, at the age of 38, I'm like, oh shit, I'm starting over. I'm taking over $100,000 in debt with me from the previous company just so I can start over, because I can see there's zero future in staying at this company that I had launched out of my kitchen. So there we are, starting over again, and I'm not even sure I'm going to stay in business finance. I love it, but I'm just not sure. I feel like I need to educate small business owners more. So I built out this education platform, and Ty had also been in the previous company, and so he left. A lot of our, early employees and team here left that company. So we're all working at different jobs, working from home, and I'm launching a new business again, and I can't qualify for financing because my finances are tapped out from the previous business. I got maxed out cards. I can't qualify for new finance. I'm like, shit, now what do I do? Fortunately, my mother-in-law steps up. She's seen that we've had success, that I just made bad decisions in bringing in the wrong business partners. And she's like, I'll be your partner. I'll, go through funding. I'll get the money. So I put together a funding plan. Of course, we're pretty good at funding still. We got $65,000, 0% interest up to 15 months. I'm like, okay, great. We've got some runway. We've got some money. In the meantime, I start falling a little bit behind on my mortgage because I know I got to hold this money up for the business. And it's super stressful. And when I get stressed, I actually lose weight, even though I'm, working out, eating, trying to do everything right. And so I'm super stressed. And for the first month in September, we don't have any sales. October, we don't. I'm building this platform out, and I've got one employee, so I'm actually paying her W-2 salary every single week. And that's where we are. And so times are tough. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'd gone from this big office. Now I'm back to working in my home office. These guys my old partners are talking crap the whole time. They're, threatening to, lawsuits, all these different things. And I meet with an attorney and I finally figure out, oh, actually, they don't have a leg to stand on. That's good news. And so eventually I'm like, all right, well, good. I'm going to get back to what I do. I've got this education platform to help business owners, educate them on business finance, all these things I've learned over the last several years. And I'm like, well, what if we combine the education with the finances? We'll get you the best money, but we'll also educate you on how to build business credit, how to make great decisions in building your business. And boom, now we've got a competitive advantage that nobody else has. And so in Thanksgiving that year, in November, we finally start to have sales. We white labeled out the education program because Ty was able to sell it to another coaching group that wanted to use the education platform that I built out. And so it was perfect. So we started making money there. I started doing business funding again. By December of that year, basically month 2, when we were actually back to doing funding, $25,000 in sales. I think we did maybe $50,000, $60,000 in sales in January. And by March, we'd already hit 6 figures, and we basically started funding again, in December. So literally 4 months later, we went from $0 to $100,000 a month, just like that. And that's when, before we even started, I started recruiting some of our old team that had left the previous company. And the first thing I did is I said, and I don't think they believed me, but I'm like, these are our values and principles. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're not going to whine and complain and talk shit about people. If there's a problem, we're going to fix it. We're going to be unreasonably optimistic. There's no complaining. There's no whining. There's only focusing on solutions. There's taking action. There's being relentless. There's being accountable for what you're supposed to do. And so I would literally meet with some of our guys. I remember meeting with Nate, who's now one of my other partners, 7 Figures Funding, and showing, hey, this is what we're going to do. Some guys didn't come with us. They went different directions and still succeeded. Good guys, just wanted us to be a little bit more established, which of course now we are. And so eventually, been working at the home office for 9 months, and there's these key points that happen I think, in everybody's, launch story. And let me get a drink real quick because I lost my voice last week. So there are these pivot points that happen in your business where if you don't pivot, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to grow. You're going to very much stay where you're at. So the first one was, hey, I'm just going to do the education programs. And by about November, 90 days in, I'm like, if we don't go back to business finance and combine this, we're going nowhere. It's all right. Back to business funding. That's me. That's what I love. It's what I'm good at. Great. We're going to add the education piece and we're going to rule. And we did. We grew fast, right? The next big decision was I had this third-party group, 2 guys from my previous company that I trained up, and they were kind of like a third-party fulfillment to do the applications and get the clients the financing. And I knew it would be temporary. And so, we're sending it into them, and Ty's like, when are we going to start doing the financing in-house? We can't be sending it out to these guys. They're great guys, but they're just never going to care as much about our deals as we are. I'm like, I got you. I know this is just temporary. Give me time to build things up here. And so by April of 2019, I take these guys out to lunch. I say, hey, I love you guys, really appreciate you, but we're going to do funding in-house from here on out. God bless you. Wish you nothing but the best. And my one employee at the time, my one full-time W-2, she literally comes the next day on a Saturday, shows up at my house, and she's sobbing. We're making the wrong decision. We can't do this. This is wrong. I'm like, I really appreciate everything you've done to this point, but we have to do it internally, or I can't, pay you more. We can't grow. We can't get an office. And I think eventually she understood that. But so that was the next big decision, right? We have to do funding in-house. And then Ty brought on one of our first big partners. It was funny. He and I were flying out to an event in Dallas, Texas. And this big partner, he had been trying to bring on, did e-commerce events across the country, and he finally gave him a shot. And he's like, hey, you got to get on this cruise. So Ty, on his own buck, gets on this cruise, takes him and his wife Marie there, Marie, who manages our funding department, and they go on this cruise. And I remember we funded a bunch of those clients. We passed their test. And then all of a sudden, he's at an event in New York City in May. I'm literally working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And you better believe I'm working a little bit on Sunday too. So basically every day, Ty is working a full-time, sales job. And then on the weekends from Friday to Sunday, he's going to these events and getting the funding application, sends them in. And then Corey and I, who was the employee at the time, we would do the funding. I'd be the funding manager. She'd do the processing. And we're just working like a well-oiled machine. Nate's coming on board. We got Austin and Ben that are starting to do sales and become funding advisors. And then we're faced with the next big question, the next big pivot. All right, well, what do we do? Do we keep on working from home, keeping expenses low overhead, no stress? No. We keep on working from home. You know what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing's going to happen. We won't grow. We won't build a valuable business. If we ever go on vacation, the business will suffer. You've got to build a real team, and you have to have a real culture, and you can't do that if you don't have an office. So, okay, we're going to move into an office. It's going to be, I think it was like $8,000 a month, which that seemed like a ton of money at the time. And fortunately, we didn't need the whole office, so we could actually kind of rent out half of it to one of our partners who was doing Amazon fulfillment. So that was great. And then funny enough, 2 of our most amazing employees actually were doing fulfillment in the other half of the office. So we got to know them. And then they both came on board. They're both amazing, both going on our company trip next week. So that was kind of, there's always these opportunities. And if you're opportunistic, you'll kind of see those and take advantage of those. So there we are. We get into the office. And I remember at the time, the year before, we had to get rid of our boat as I was starting, this new business. So my kids were super sad about that. And it was okay because the lake was low and, Utah was in a drought. And then that winter, we got a ton of snow and we did a lot of snowboarding. And my kids are like, Dad, are we going to get a boat again? And I'm like, I don't know, guys. We got to move into an office. I don't think we can do it. But then for some reason, the landlord gave us like a free month of rent for moving in. I don't remember why they did that, and it was just enough for the down payment for the boat. So I'm like, screw it, let's do it. So we got the boat. That was awesome. I remember, just a few months later, and then meeting with one of my old business partners who was still at the old company I'd started, and I could tell he was itching to go out and do his own thing. Hated working with our old business partners as well. And he's like, dude, there's something. You don't seem stressed at all. I'm like, I'm not, man. We're executing. We got values and principles. We got an amazing team. We're growing. And it was just great to be in control. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you've got to have control. If you don't have control over the business, over your team, if you don't have control over what the culture stands for, then that business is not going to succeed. And that's exactly why the previous one did end up obviously not succeeding after I left, et cetera, et cetera. And so anyway, this guy ends up starting his own thing. He's building like a $100 million fintech, which, we're actually we're following him, working with him. He's done a great job. But again, just how important those values and principles are. So we move in the office, start building the company up, and things are going well. More than half of our business is coming from this events partner, and he does all these e-commerce events. And so we're literally gone like all the time on weekends. Ty is still working his full-time job. And then, lo and behold, guess what happens in 2020? The pandemic hits. Oh, shit. So the pandemic hits, now what? Well, all of those events we had scheduled, and they were all over the country, 3 out of 4 weeks of every month, and the majority of our business was coming from these events. So the pandemic hits in March of 2020, and those events go away, and our lead flow is tanking. And then incredibly, like, my first employee at the time was like, I need a raise. I need this. I need that. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just had our worst month ever. Probably not a good time to ask for a raise. And so that's all these things are happening at the same time. And, a lot of our team is, they don't know how to react to the pandemic. They don't know if they should come to the office. And so crazy things are happening. All these events are gone. And so by May, we have our worst month in the last 12 months. Like literally May of 2019 was significantly better, like 2.5 times better than May of 2020. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, two important things. I decide we have to have a funding partner portal. I have to invest $20,000 into software, 20 grand. We've got some money saved up. Okay, great. So we put that into that. So in our worst month ever, I'm investing $20,000 into this partner portal. And then I'm like, well, and we've got this partner portal. What if we start recruiting people who are, coaches, consultants who want to build a business, finance business? We offer some training, and now we can generate more leads, more deals. And so I created a sales funnel, and it was my first successful one because I had tried before that to do these sales funnels, the Click funnels, the Russell Brunson things, and they not failed. And what I learned was, well, just follow somebody's funnel, model after them. Don't copy, because I'm going to do my own stuff. I'm always going to be unique and create more value and a better offer than the competition. But who is in the space, my space, that has a successful sales funnel? So I looked and I found a couple successful funnels. I modeled after them, and lo and behold, it actually succeeded. And so we're bringing in partners, bringing in more deals. And then one of the key things that we also did during that time was, and this is where that concept of being relentless comes in, obviously there's concern, there's issues, our sales have plummeted, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep on working hard. Some of our guys were on vacation. I don't know how they went on vacation. The pandemic was amazing. I think one of them went to Costa Rica, Austin did. And so I'm calling through some of his old leads because he's out for the week. And I see this old pre-approval, this lady Jen, really cool, get a hold of her. And she's like, yeah, I'm not actually working in that business opportunity I was, but I got this new one I'm super excited about. So I took her through funding. She got like 35 grand. We paid off a high interest credit card, moved it to 0% interest, saved her like 3 grand a year in interest. She's super excited. And I'm like, tell me about this group you're working with. So like, oh, it's this couple, and they're helping, moms who want to build an Amazon business while they put their baby to sleep for the day. Baby's taking the nap, and now you can build your Amazon business. I'm like, wow, these guys sound cool. They match our values and principles. And so I reach out to him every which way possible. LinkedIn, Facebook, their website, email address. And finally he responds and I'm like, hey, we helped your client. She did well. She can give you a shout out to how awesome our business financing was. So we did a few calls with him and he's like, all right, hey, I got this big virtual event. So we were used to live events. Now we're going to transition to virtual events. So we transitioned to virtual events. And I remember, this is e-commerce. I haven't done this much financing with e-commerce clients. Well, actually, we'd done a decent amount to that point. But in terms of presenting the funding options, I felt like, Ty had a lot of e-commerce experience. He would really have the credibility when talking about this. So Ty's like, well, I'm going to play golf for the weekend in St. George, but let me do the workshop. I'm like, cool, you do the workshop. I'll make sure everybody gets funding. So he did it, and we literally we signed 50 deals that week. And it's literally me, and I've got my 16-year-old son, Lucas, who's taking off on his mission to Brazil on Monday. But back then, he was like 16. He's in high school. Luckily, he has this really deep voice. And so he's in there working these clients. Austin gets back. He's in there working on those clients. And then it's literally Nate and I. So there's literally like 4 of us that are just attacking all of these deals. And July, we have a record month. So literally, 3 months after the pandemic, we now have a record month. And every month thereafter, we keep growing and we keep on bringing more partners in and adding the 5-star experiences to the clients. And over and over and over again, there are these key decision points that you come to. And, as you fast forward, as I look at the wall here, we got our 2 Comma Club X Award, which a very small amount of businesses ever qualify for that or, end up doing 8 figures in sales. And so it's been an extraordinary experience. And as I look back, the values and principles are important. If you don't have values and principles on your wall, do what you say you're going to do. We're going to be relentless. We're going to focus on solutions. We're not going to make love to problems. We're going to, build a strong team, a strong culture. We're going to solve problems fast, not avoid them. We're going to take on issues quickly and fix them. We're going to control what we can control, not worry about the things we can't control. And as I look back at the journey, those are important things. If you don't start with the foundation of values and principles, you can't build something. And at the key points, if you don't end up getting an office, it's going to be tough to build something. If you don't build a team and get out of the trenches where you're doing 99% of the operational work, going to be very difficult to build, scale, and grow a company, right? And then the other thing I'd say is you have to build high leverage things in your business. For example, that investment in that partner portal has paid significant dividends. Now we've invested over $100,000 in that portal. Now we've invested over $200,000 in our fintech application, myfigures.com, to help small business owners get their money right, manage everything in one place instead of 20 different places. I believe that company is going to be a $100 million company in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's going to absolutely transform the way small business owners access money and build profitable businesses. And our goal is to see how many, at least, hundreds of thousands of small businesses help them join the 7 Figures Club. 93% of businesses never do. People are like, why is your business called 7 Figures Funding? You're not getting me $1 million. Well, sometimes we are if you qualify, but yeah, most people are not. Most people are getting $50,000 to $150,000 in funding. But you know what? By getting this funding, following these principles we teach you, you can join the 7 Figures Club, build a 7 Figures business using the funding to kind of rocket and propel you to that 7 Figures business that only 7% of businesses ever get to in our country. And that's why we're called 7 Figures Funding. And so, having a very detailed mission is important, and then working on, different things. Maybe, it's working on the ability to do public speaking about funding or about whatever it is you do, right? So that's been key. Speaking at events, gaining notoriety, writing a book, all these different things are little assets that help you build the business. But it is a journey, and it is experience, and it is learning. If you're not learning from other mentors who are further along the journey than you are, then again, it's going to be tough to build that business, that 7-8 figure business that you want to do. And the good thing about 2023 is you don't have to actually know them in person, right? Patrick Bet-David's one of my top mentors, and I first met him at an event I spoke at and sponsored in Indianapolis. Amazing event. Awesome to meet him and talk with him and tell him what an impact. But he'd made an impact on me like 2-3 years earlier when I started consuming all of his content and buying his programs long before I ever met him. And that's what's great about 2023 and everything as an entrepreneur. You can learn from entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozi and Russell Brunson and Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone, all these successful entrepreneurs, just by consuming their YouTube channels, their podcasts, buying their programs, going to their annual events that they put on, listening to them speak, and you can incorporate and model the different strategies and tools and tactics they've used to succeed at a very high level. And so there's never been a better time to be able to learn quickly from others. And the biggest mistake I made early on as an entrepreneur was acting like I just had these things figured out, which was absolutely foolish. You've got to be reading the books every day. You've got to be listening to the podcasts every day. And if you add all these things up together, that's how you build a 7 and eventually 8-figure business. And now our next step is, well, how can we get to 9 figures? And we've got some ideas on that. And it's investing in software. It's investing in recurring income programs within your business. And of course, it's building a community of very excited customers who all work together to create something amazing.